the original issue I picked up. This is an issue that was sitting in the growth backlog for quite a while, actually, and that closely aligned to the adoption group. So this was basically a rough idea of if we were to create a weekly digest email for admins and group owner, we could kind of achieve a couple of goals. The first one would be to provide interesting information to these people that they could act upon. The second being drive awareness of additional stages and features through this email. And the third being combining the two previous goals, we would potentially see an increase in retention. So that was like let's say a simple hypothesis. And out of that, we started kind of adding a couple of items that we thought could be interesting into this email. But as you can see, if you look at, for example, information on projects, information on active users, MRs, like all of this is quite broad. And also at this stage, it felt that we were kind of, picking different themes without really knowing, like, if this would serve some kind of user need. Like, for sure, it would serve business needs and potentially try to like advertise specific feature that we know are important. But we could not kind of pinpoint what was the problem that what was the user problem, sorry, that we're actually trying to solve with this. So this was a good time to take a step back and try to reframe the problem, try to reframe the potential like solutions. And the way I did this was to use this ideation tool that is called the theory of change. By the way, I highly recommend designkit.org if you ever need to go through multiple ideas on how to ideate. But yeah, basically I felt that this was specifically relevant to what we're trying to do, as the theory of change is meant to help you articulate and interrogate your assumptions about a given solution. And essentially you go through multiple steps that can help you refine and stress test the solution. So I basically followed these steps and I translated all of this into a mural. And my initial starting point was to just simply focus on the personas that we wanted to aim at with this issue. So the team lead and the system administrator. I'm more going to be focusing on the team lead here. The first goal that we wanted the persona to accomplish was to kind of retrieve information that helps them effectively manage their team, but also learn about new feature. Then we felt that this person would need owner and maintainer permission. This is mainly to kind of like oversee the whole notification, but also adopt specific feature. And then potential stages that this person would be interested in. Once I had this, I actually tried to think about, okay, what are the pain points according to this goal to try to retrieve specific information and learn about features. So I did not invent those pain points. I literally pulled this from another initiative that the growth team is working on, which is building an MVC for a dashboard. And when we tackled this, Matej actually talked about it in the previous showcase that he did. But we tackled this with Design Sprint, where we interviewed a couple of engineering managers at GitLab. So the pain points that you're seeing here are directly pulled from that effort. And essentially what I did here was to just kind of categorize into 3 different groups and try to narrow it down to like 3 pain points. So the first one being extra third-party app is needed in their workflow, which to me kind of feel that there's a lack of feature awareness because of, this can induce a lack of feature awareness or maybe a lack of functionality in analytics. The second pain point is that they're unable to identify blockers ahead of time. And then the third one is tracking activity is a manual and tedious process because they have to do like manual check-ins on GitLab or on their email. So once I had that, that was where what helped me with the first step of the theory of change, which is called shifts. And essentially what you have to do is write the shift that you want to observe. So I started from the pain point. So here I rephrase it to from being unable to identify blockers ahead of time to proactively flag blockers. Same thing with the second one, manually tracking activity to periodically getting the information at a glance, from a lack of feature awareness to activate feature that improve their workflow. So at this stage, move on to the second step, which is to essentially write down as many concepts as you can think of that could address this shift. And this is the moment where I started like bringing Mike, the former PM of adoption, in this mural, where I was like, look, this is the shifts that I have, this is all the concepts that I wrote. Does that make sense to you? And then we started kind of discussing of like, okay, which concept is actually addressing each single one of these shifts. And by doing so, we kind of saw that the weekly email digest that we initially thought of could be a good option, but also essentially trying to push people to set up integration with other like communication channels like Slack, Asana, or Discord could also be an interesting concept for us to pursue. So once we had that, we moved on to the final, and sorry, I forgot to mention, and we choose to like focus on this specific two shift and stash this one for a bit. So the shift that we choose to focus on is manually tracking activity to GitLab, and from lack of feature awareness to activate feature that improve workflow. So once we had that, we moved to the final step, which is essentially a summary of the steps that we've been going through, where we kind of rephrase what is the lasting social change that we want to contribute. So social change is a bit much, let's just say change in this case. But what we wanted at this point is to see team leads can easily like track their team activity and are better aware of GitLab's feature. And then kind of the near outcome. So basically what tell us that our solution is working. So for us to verify that, we want to see an increase in an increase in stage adoption, but based on the feature that we're advertising, and an increase in overall retention. So then same thing, like it's just rewriting the shifts, the different concept that we're going to focus on. And then it's kind of moving up to the condition that we basically need for the solution to work. So this is more internal. So in our case, we felt that for this to work, we need the email to be tailored and relevant. We also need the frequency to be just right, in the sense that it needs to be at the right moment so that it doesn't feel spammy and that it fits well into users' workflow. And then moving on to the risks as to why our concept solution could not work. So this is more external, maybe not project and group, but the project and group model is confusing. So you may not know basically where the activity is coming from. Like, are you talking about group or project? And then so this one is basically the organization cannot set up the feature in the sense that it's completely irrelevant to the project that they're working on, or they don't have the budget to simply upgrade and use this feature. So once I had all this, I kind of had a better idea of at least where we're heading and why we were doing this. So I kind of went back to focusing on the concept of an email digest. And this is where I tried to kind of split it into two parts. The notification part that we have here and the feature discovery part. And for the notification part, I started asking myself, okay, what could be the content? What could be the frequency? What the MVC content could be? And then what are the iteration that we could deduce out of that? So in our case, still like focusing on team activity. So maybe merge requests, issues, releases, and then feature discovery on specific stages. And then in terms of frequency, based on all of the shift that we wanted to see, weekly and bi-weekly felt relevant. But then it kind of triggered another question of like, when in the week is this relevant? Again, tying back to the right frequency problem. And then I move on to the feature discovery part, where I started trying to pair what notification would have here with related feature discovery or tip. So say we send a digest that is built around merge requests. So the ratio of open and closed merge requests, which hierarchy feature could kind of be relevant in this workflow. And in this is, for example, code review analytics, which is one of our premium feature, could really match this. So this is a moment where, you know, it really felt that things like pieces were coming together, but at the same time, it also felt that all this was not really grounded into reality. So what we did is we went into a research phase that was in two phases. The first one was internal, where we pulled out some engineering manager from GitLab. And we had basically a, 30-minute interview with them. And this is the discussion guide that we prepare. So we just basically look at trying to reformulate over the pain point and make sure that the one we tackle and that I show you in the mural were the right one, by asking them, you know, how do they evaluate their team performance? What information are they checking? What is important to them? If they could show us how they were doing it. And once we kind of had this, we moved into this bit where we listed all of the features that we thought could be interesting into an MVC. And we asked them basically to rate it on a scale of not at all useful to extremely useful. And that was helpful for our research, because basically, so I'm not going to go through all that, but what we learned is in terms of frequency, weekly is good, but ideally Monday would be the day that people would be interested in. But monthly could also be something we should explore, because essentially what they wanted to do is have the ability to go back and have something that would compile all of these weeks so that they don't have to do it themselves. So that was an interesting learning from that research. And then we started fleshing out some of the main themes. So in this case, we saw that a merge request related email or issue related email was a topic that was interesting. But then this is where we took another step back, and where we felt that, you know, how much of this is right, in the sense that we've only interviewed a GitLab team member, right? So how biased are we working with GitLab all year long and having our own workflows? And this is where the second phase came in, where we actually shifted this discussion guide into a full survey that we released and externally. So we got overall 60 respondents, I think. And basically our main takeaway, we kind of confirmed some of our hypotheses that weekly digest around issue and merge request activity is interesting. But we also seen quite a lot of people being interested in CI/CD analytics, which is something that